This video is brought to you by Charge. You know, it might just be the year of the iPad. The wind is blowing in the right direction, if you see what I'm doing here. The weather feels about right. The humidity is similar to that of what we were experiencing in late 2018, if you get my drift. What I'm saying is the conditions are conducive for a major iPad update. And to top it all off, Apple has released these very suspicious, very obviously iPad event graphics for the event that's happening next week on May 7th at 7 a.m. PT. Interesting timing as well. And the reason I made this video was because I read this article by 9to5Mac where they said Apple is promoting the May 7th keynote as a different kind of Apple event. And they had this post, I assume in Europe, that says, we're drafting up something special for you. Join us on 7 May, totally European, at 3 p.m. on apple.com for a different kind of Apple event. So, that's interesting. Apple's pretty ambiguous with their marketing. But even more importantly, this is sort of the basis of this video, we have the right conditions hardware-wise, product development-wise, when you think about the company, for iPad to finally get some attention, because the last time it got attention was really, honestly, in late 2018. Apple absolutely, pardon my Gen Z, cooked with the third generation iPad Pro, or the first gen 11 inch and the third generation 12.9 inch, similar generation, just weird generational names. The point is, they came out with this design, they came out with this, home buttonless display, really powerful Apple Silicon. And then the iPad has since kind of plateaued, and don't get me wrong, it's gotten really decent updates. But in 2020, it got this camera and really hasn't changed since. Then of course in 2021, we got the M1 chip on the inside of here, plus a mini LED display in the 12.9 inch at least. And that was cool, but it's like we didn't really know what to do with it because iPadOS was sort of limited and still kind of is. But then that changed in June of 2022 with the introduction of iPadOS 16, external display support, Stage Manager. That was really cool, but even still, that was sort of half-baked. You could tell Apple had their mind elsewhere, which I'll get into in a minute. And then we got the M2 chip on the inside of here in late 2022, Apple Pencil Hover as well, and that was like cool, but it's like, didn't really change the iPad's condition. The design didn't change, the camera didn't change, nothing much changed. Maybe I think it got like Wi-Fi 7 or something. And then we got Final Cut in 2023, which is cool, but I think that needs more work too. Not to mention, this is somewhat important here, I forgot to mention, we got the Magic Keyboard in 2020. And I like this thing at first, and I'm glad that it exists, and I'm glad that it brought trackpad support too officially, or sort of, started that. But this has just really not worked out that well. Like, it really isn't comparable to my MacBook Air, and like that's kind of what I've always wanted. Not like a Mac replacement, but something similar, and it just doesn't sit well in my lap, and just, all I'm saying is this accessory really hasn't aged well for me, and maybe it hasn't for you either. It's clean, but not particularly practical. But anyway, we are now sort of at the end of this plateau stage, and I'll explain why. But first, I want to bring up today's video sponsor, Charge, and their 6 ShargeGeek 170 portable charger. Put simply, this thing looks incredible. It touts this transparent, dark side of the moon-esque look that shows off the board, capacitors, and battery cells inside. You also get this sweet smart display that not only gives you useful info like recharge time and wattage, but also looks great with a thoughtfully designed digital/analog hybrid style interface. But beyond the ShargeGeek 170's super cool appearance, it's also a kick-ass portable battery bank. It can fast charge 3 devices at once with dual USB-C and USB-A connectors, all with a super impressive 170 watt max output that enables PD3 high efficiency fast charging. You can also fast charge the bank itself since it has a max 140 watt input via both USB-C ports. This means you can charge this thing to 50% in as little as 20 minutes. And on top of the input and output, you have a respectable 24,000 mAh capacity, which can keep multiple devices charged while on the go, no low battery anxiety necessary. The 170 is also airline safe and IP66 splash resistant to boot, so if you want something to keep your tech charged that looks dope, performs like a sports car, and can cope with the environment, definitely check out my links to this in the video description if you're interested. But anyway, back to the video. What I'm getting at is Apple has had a lot of problems to figure out since the debut of the 2018 iPad Pro. If anything, we didn't know this at the time, but this was sort of the experimental device. They experimented with refresh rate. They wanted to see how it was received. They experimented with Apple Silicon. This had the A12X and Z on the inside at first, so that was the precursor to the M1. And the design was just fabulous.
It was gorgeous, it was decorated, it was beautiful, it was fabulous, everything.
It sort of inspired the MacBook Pro, I think, sort of, the new iPhones that came after. So yeah, like they had to improve other products that made more money or make more money before they got back to this. And it's been like 5 years. They fixed the iPhone. You know, I think 10s and 10s Max were the start, and then the 11 Pro got really good, and then the 13 Pro was really good, and you know, we're sort of riding on the coattails of that phone. And then in terms of the Max, they got the M1 chip before the iPad did, of course. And those were a huge hit and still are. And then the MacBook Pros got completely redone, and the MacBook Airs got redone. So, you know, like they had to sort of revamp the real moneymakers, the iPhone and the Mac. The Macs are more expensive per unit. The iPhone, you know, completely monopolizes all of their revenue, you know, paired with services. So the iPad has sort of taken the back seat, and I'm not surprised. And that's why we've sort of gotten sort of half-baked updates. Specifically, I would say iPad OS 16 was like that. Great new, you know, stage manager and external monitor support. But if you remember, it was buggy and it just wasn't quite exactly what we wanted, or it didn't work super, super well. Oh, and not to mention, Apple Vision Pro was happening in the background. That took like 8 years to develop, billions of dollars, I'm sure, and it works really, really well. You know, it might not do much, but when you use it, I mean, it's just so well done for what it is, with so many variables and the spatial aspect you have to keep in mind. So I'm not surprised the iPad has just really sort of been passed up. So with that said, now that Apple has nothing else better to do, not true, but you know, like now they're gonna go, okay, well, now it's the year of the iPad. I mean, and since, you know, the 2018 one came out, you know, thankfully, if anything, iPad has sort of, or iPad Pro sort of shared its wealth with the rest of the iPads. You know, the iPad Air was first in 2020, got the iPad Pro design, then the iPad Mini got that design, and I love this device. I use it literally every day for work and like organization. I literally used it for some talking points here. But yeah, like basically the iPad Pro 2018 models rubbed off on all the other ones, but itself, like the iPad Pro as a product category, has remained somewhat similar. Thankfully, it's gotten updates. But yeah, it just really hasn't gone too many places like the other products have, but there was a lot of ground to cover there. So what are we gonna expect? You know, what are we thinking? You know, that's up to you, honestly. You can share your thoughts. I really don't know much. I'm not really a leaks and rumors channel, although I did do a speculative video a few weeks back or months back at this point. But I'll reiterate a couple of my predictions here. I definitely believe we're gonna get a middle mounted or sort of centered camera. I think it's gonna get thinner. We've seen reports about that, which honestly, at first I was like, why? It's already pretty thin, but I don't know. I think it will improve the experience a lot if you wanna sort of treat this like a piece of paper, you know, sort of like a little clipboard that you know, whip around, especially when paired with a keyboard accessory, which I hope it's, you know, very MacBook-like. That's something else I talked about, something more, you know, metallic, aluminum, something like that, something more Surface Book-esque. That would really change the game here. And more ports. I want more ports. I want, you know, MagSafe. I want an additional USB-C port. That would be nice here. Hopefully an updated camera. Maybe we get 24 to 48 megapixels on there. And just better software. I mean, we're not going to see that, you know, now, but in the next month, which is crazy to think. It's almost June. Well, it's about to be May, but then it's going to be June. Time flies. I hope that iPad OS, was it going to be 18, really takes the cake and really sort of gives us a reason to invest in the iPad. And that's sort of my final thoughts here. You know, I have actual, you know, positive expectations for this event, because yeah, it's like all the other dominoes have fallen, you know, all the other variables have been crossed out, you know, iPad is the remaining product category to be uplifted, and Apple takes their time to do things well. So I hope they figure out what exactly this is and how to position it between the Mac line and the iPhone and whatever else. And I hope it's a really sick, like, productivity, project management type device, because I literally do that. It's my job. I have to make little movies all the time and, you know, just sort of organize so many thoughts and shot lists and components. So, you know, as much as I love my MacBook Air, if something like this was able to replace it or sort of be comparable, but also bring, you know, iPad functionality with the pencil and God knows what else we'll see at this event, Yeah, I would definitely try to use that more because it's such a versatile device, and that's what I was saying about the 2019 or excuse me the 2018 iPad Pro. I remember really being excited about how versatile and exciting this device was. It was Mac-like, it was iPad-like. The pencil is really well done, and of course at that time I thought it was just going to get better and better and better. But Apple had other things in mind, so we're kind of back here, I hope. And hopefully I can cover the iPad the same way I did all the way back then 4 years ago. Lots have changed. I have grown a lot. The channel has grown a lot, and I appreciate you guys sticking with me. So let's hope that this is an iPad renaissance to remember. And that about wraps things up here. I hope this video was fun, helpful. I want to just share the positive vibes. Check out my link to Charge in the video description, of course, and my wallpaper packs as well, SKYLINE and SKYLINE II. And as always, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all in the next one.